Good afternoon, everybody, and happy Thursday. Sorry for the minute delay. I got caught up talking with Janet about the pens that they have at OCECD. They are wonderful pens if you are ever able to see them or hear them speak in person. But we are back for part two with the Ohio Coalition for the Education of Children with Disabilities. And we're talking about children transitioning from early intervention to preschool, what parents need to know. Again, this is a part two. If you were unable to join us for our previous presentation on Tuesday, this will all be combined and uploaded as one video to our YouTube channel over the next week or so. So you'll be able to get that information at your own pace and on your own time. So welcome again to Janet. Janet has been working with the coalition since September of 2023, and she serves many roles, wears many hats. She is their statewide intake person, information specialist, and trainer as well. She has a bachelor's in special education and is working on her master's in STEAM education. Without further ado, I would like Janet to get started. However, this is a very friendly reminder that Janet did put the pre-survey in the chat. If you were unable to complete that last session, we would love for you to complete that today. It's just kind of an information check and kind of a knowledge check, and to see how they can make their presentations as wonderful as possible for those of us that they are serving. So I'm going to now pass it off to you, Janet, for today's presentation. Thank you.
All right, welcome back, everyone. For those of you that did part one, so we are going to do part two of early intervention to preschool. So it's kind of the same layout. This one is a touch longer, so I'll do my best to kind of cruise right through it so that there's time for questions after, or if anyone has any comments or anything like that. Super open to all of those. So we will do part two today. Okay, so what are we going to cover in this section of the webinars? Determining eligibility for preschool special education services, and that is what is required once the child's evaluation is completed. We are going to do and look at some of the IEPs for preschoolers, and when part of their free and appropriate public education, the IEP components, who makes the decisions, and then when services must start, and then who is responsible for all of the services that go into those. Some more here. So we talked about the least restrictive environment. We'll talk about what it is, what law is required in there. And then we talk about placement decisions, the placement options, determining a placement for the child's LRE. So we have the preschool special education evaluation. So this is the process used to gather information that will help determine if your child has a disability requiring special education services, and then your child's educational needs. An evaluation cannot be conducted without a evaluation planning meeting, and then the parent's informed written consent form. And then here again, is the parent consent evaluation. So it does have kind of all of the things in there. You'll have your initial eval, your re-eval, kind of all the boxes you fill in. Again, I want to touch on the box kind of in the middle. If you have a reason why you don't agree or whichever, make sure you do give your best effort to writing in there. The box is not very big. So I do kind of try to suggest to families either type it out and send it in, or if you can write it on a piece of paper that can get attached. It is really important that you do put your input in there and make it as detailed as possible. So the evaluation must be completed within 60 calendar days of the date when the parent's consent was received. So then what happens once the evaluation is completed? So when the evaluation is completed, you will be invited to attend a meeting to discuss the results of that evaluation. And then need to review the evaluation team report at the ETR meeting. So everyone will do all of their findings. It will come together Sometimes a draft is available for those meetings, and sometimes that's really nice to give families and kind of anyone helping support you. That way everyone kind of knows what's in that document and what we're going to talk about, and then you can kind of be prepared with your questions and things like that. So for the initial evaluation, the team must include the parent, a person qualified to interpret the results of the assessment used, and then a district representative. And you also may provide group members may also participate. So at the ETR meeting, you will go over the results of the test and the assessments identified on the evaluation planning form. So the form looks pretty much kind of exactly like this. Everyone's just a touch different. It does go through the boxes and what you used, and kind of sometimes some districts have who did that part of the testing. Typically it's done by the same person, unless there's something else that's needed. And it just goes through that and everyone signs, and then that's just the team report of like what tests we did. So then you have what happens once the evaluation is completed. So after the eval is done, you and other members of the team will discuss your child's functioning in all of the following areas: adaptive information, cognition, so your child's ability to acquire knowledge and the understanding, communication, hearing, vision, sensory and motor functions, social emotional functioning, and behavioral functioning. Then you have your preschool evaluation and then the eligibility. So it's, does your child meet the definition of a child with a disability in one of the 13 categories? Does your child's developmental delays or disability have an adverse effect on your child's ability to participate in and benefit from age-appropriate activities? Does your child need special education and related services? So those are the 3 questions that are asked. And then, so it's your child may be determined eligible for preschool special education services when the team can answer yes to these questions. Then you have the evaluation and eligibility. So you have developmental delay. So the term developmental delay may be used in place of the following disability categories: speech or language impairment, a cognitive disability, or emotional disturbance. So the term developmental delay may be used only after considering the applicability of the other disability categories. Developmental delay means the child has a disability in one or more of the following areas of development: physical, cognitive, communication, social, emotional, or adaptive. So the developmental delay is substantiated by the delay of a 2-point standard deviation below the mean in one area of development, or a 1.5 standard deviations below the mean of 2 other areas of development. So then you have your suspected disability categories. So then again, all of the information goes here, and then these are the 13 disability categories that you choose, and then the developmental delay one is down here kind of at the end. And that is just what you choose, and that's how your student is qualified for special education services. So then you go to the eligibility determination. So again, all of your information. These were the questions earlier, a few slides ago, where you do check yes or no. And then the child is eligible for special education related services in the category of, and then that is where you would type in there. And then basis eligibility determination, you then typically does allow you to type quite a bit, how the disability affects the child's progress in a general education curriculum. So then the section 5 is what if they disagree with the student's school district evaluations. So this is where everyone writes their name in, your title, your signature, the date, and then whether you agree or disagree. And then again, down here, you have your statement. That is where you do type everything in and kind of see where you disagree and not agree. So what happens if my child is not found eligible for preschool special education services? So if the team determines that your child is not eligible for special education services, and you disagree, and you may request an independent evaluation or use another dispute resolution option. So both of those options are outlined in your Guide to Parents' Rights. of special education. So it's quite a long book, but it's definitely something that you're going to want to have. You should also ask a team member for their advice and recommendations about community-based programs and services for your child. This is where a really good part of like some of the county boards are really, really helpful because they might have really good connections with some of the things that are happening within your community and be able to point you in the right direction and be helpful with that aspect as well. So then we briefly, the last time, talked about the 10 steps. So we talked about the 10 steps between referral and the IEP meeting. So we're going to go through them again. So referral is made to the school district requesting an initial evaluation starting that 30-day timeline. A school district gives a parent a copy of the procedural safeguards notice. Then a referral for an evaluation form, which is the PRO4, is completed. The school district then decides if they will evaluate or not and provides the parent with a prior written notice informing them what the district intends to do and the reason for that decision. If the school district suspects a disability, PRO2 form is sent, inviting the parents to an evaluation planning meeting. Number 6, evaluation planning form is completed that documents the results of the evaluation planning meeting. And then number 7, a prior written notice again is given to the parent explaining all assessments in the evaluations that are proposed. Parent is asked to provide an informed consent for the evaluation, and after the parent consent form, PRO5, is signed, that is when the 60-day timeline to complete the evaluation begins. Parent is invited to participate in an evaluation team report, so that's your ETR. During that meeting, the results of the evaluation are discussed and the child's eligibility is determined. Number 10, a meeting to develop an IEP is held within the 30 days of the date on which your child was determined eligible for special education. So then we have our preschool evaluation and eligibility. If your child is determined eligible for special education and related services, and you wish to receive them, the information collected through the evaluation process will be used to develop your child's Individualized Education Program, so your IEP. So then we're going to talk about a little bit the IEP and some of the things that go into that for preschool. So what is your IEP? So it's every child's determined eligibility for special education must have an IEP developed before receiving the actual services. This is where FAPE comes into hand. So it's the free and appropriate public education. Children determined eligible for preschool special education services are entitled to that free and appropriate public education. So then again, special education has a lot of timelines as well. So it's super good to have that procedural safeguards book because it does talk about those quite a bit. So when must the IEP be in place? So by whichever time is shortest. So you have 30 days, calendar days from the date your child is eligibility was determined. You have 90 days calendar from the date your child's written consent for the evaluation to take place. And then it's 120 calendar days of the date of the referral for the evaluation. The most important deadline for children transitioning from early intervention to preschool services is the date of the child's 3rd birthday. So children who are determined eligible for preschool special education services must have an IEP put into place and implemented by their 3rd birthday. This is true even of those children that are suspected of having a disability that are referred to early intervention. So it's 46 to 90 days before their 3rd birthday. I think I skipped one, sorry. So this means that the evaluation and the IEP timelines may need to be expedited or accomplished more quickly in order for the child to have an IEP in place by their 3rd birthday. So the timelines do play a really big part kind of in the process because you want to make sure there is plenty of time that everyone can do the best evaluation they can and have times to meet and connect and kind of get that, the IEP and how we can make it best successful for the student. So only those children suspected of having a disability that are referred to early intervention 45 days or less before their third birthday are not required to have an IEP in place by their third birthday. Can children be determined eligible for Part B services before their third birthday? A child younger than 3 years old may begin in the district preschool special education program at the beginning of the school year if the child will turn 3 by December 1st of the current calendar year. The parent, the IEP, and the IFSP team members all agree. So those are the two things. Who develops your IEP? So the IEP is developed by your child's IEP team. What does the IEP include? So this is also like the whole IEP and for here on years. Like this is everything. This is not just specific for preschool. So you have your future planning. So this is a statement about the IEP team's hopes for your child and activities they would like your child to work on during that calendar year. This is typically too where parents are asked to kind of give their input on kind of their future planning and their future goals for their student. Then you have your profile, which is a summary of your child's developmental strengths and opportunities for growth, background information about your child, and concerns you may have for your child's education. So this is kind of where you can talk about like the before school things, that you noticed or your student struggled with, or if, any complications or other health concerns that your student may have. So then you talk about extended school year, special education and related services that are provided by the school district beyond the regular school year. So these are things like in the summertime. All districts must consider extended school year services as a part of the IEP process for children transitioning from early intervention programs to preschool programs. So there is no requirement that your child must have previous school experience to receive extended school year services. So then this is kind of the IEP form. So you have your future planning. Most of the boxes are typable for staff and to add in there. For parents, I don't believe it is allowed to be typable, but you would send your future planning and your profile information and the teacher could type them in. So you do check these boxes. As a team, you go through them. And then you have your profile and then your extended school year services are down here at the bottom. Sometimes in the fall, if your student's IEP meeting is before Christmas, sometimes this is just not applicable yet, just because it's, we're not, the closer we get to the summer and the goals, we can reopen it and reevaluate that. Future planning, special education factors, profile, then your extended school year services. And then what does the IEP include? So it includes present levels of academic achievement and functional performance. So it's a description of your child's current performance relating to their developmental functional performances and pre-academic skills. So then you have your measurable and annual goals, and then every goal has a set of objectives. So identify what will your child be working on in that coming year. It's based on the strengths and needs identified in your child's evaluation, and it helps your child to become more independent in learning, functioning, and playing in different environments. So then you also have a progress part. So it's a description of how your child's progress will be measured and how it will be informed and how you will be informed of their progress. So we have the IEP again, here's the form. So we have the measurable goals, and if your student has more than one goal, they're numbered and it'll tell you what number it is, the area, then you have your present level of your academic and functional performance, and that's kind of from your ETR. And this is where the goal is created. And then then you have your objectives, and sometimes you'll see like 1.1, 1.2, it's just however many objectives they have for that. And then your methods for measuring the child's progress towards the annual goal. So it'll just kind of see how we're going to do it. Like sometimes there's just work samples, sometimes there's a checklist, running records. You kind of just check one. And again, most of those are decided as a team. And then how we're going to do the written progress reports, just typically that's every 9 weeks or 6 weeks or however they do that for you guys. again, we have what is also included in the IEP. We have specially designed instruction. So this is a statement of the specially designed instruction, related services, additional aids, and program modifications that your child will receive. And then sometimes we do have students who do qualify for adaptive physical education. So a description of any services your child may require to address their developmental and physical and motor fitness, fundamental motor skills and patterns, and individual and group names in sports. So again, you have your specially designed instructions. So these look a little different with words in them because they're more spread out. So you'll have your specifically designed instruction, like what we're doing. And then you have related services, assistive technology, you have your accommodations, so some of the goals that we helped, any modifications that your student may have, support from school personnel. So this might be if your student has an aide in the classroom, that's where something like that would go there. And then any medical needs, like if there's any allergies or like anything else that your student may have medically, that would go in that box. And then also, what does the IEP include? So transportation is a huge part of the IEP, and you have transportation shall be listed as a related service on a preschooler's IEP if the IEP team determines that transportation is required for the child to access and benefit from special education. So then transportation, again, it's section 8, and it's kind of a yes or no check system. So you answer the questions, and then kind of it has some listed here. So if there's an aid or a car seat or a safety vest, wheelchair lift, adapted vehicle, other, and then you get to type in, if it is other, or if there's any other notes that would need to be in here that would be helpful for the bus driver or, the school. And then you have placement information. So you have a description of how and where your child's services will take place, including the extent to which your child will be educated with other children who do not have disabilities. So this is section 11. So this talks about the least restrictive environment. So again, there's yes, no questions. And then you do, if no, you explain why. And then for preschool, which is down here, does the child attend a general education setting? Yes or no? Does the child receive all of his or her special education and related services embedded with regular classroom routines and activities? And then in these questions too, it kind of explain what's going on and who provides what and where it will be. And then this is just an IEP form, kind of like the cover page. So you'll have all of the child's information. You'll have these questions. This is your parents' information. Definitely, even if nothing has changed, always double check this. I always encourage my parents to double check it, just to make sure that the cell phone number and all of those things are still correct. Other information. So this is a really useful box to list like placement and general education information for preschool students. So like the example we have here is Cindy will continue to attend Ohio County Head Start for 4 days a week. She will receive inherited services for 2 hours a week, 1 hour from an inherited intervention specialist, and 1 hour from an integrated speech and language pathologist. And then more to the right, you have your boxes and the meeting dates, and kind of, ETR completion dates, effective dates, and then IEP form status, kind of where we're at with that. We have placement decisions in least restrictive environment. So what is the least restrictive environment? It is the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, so IDEA, requires that to be the greatest extent possible of your child should be educated along with children without disabilities. When appropriate, this allows your child with a disability to have their individual needs met while learning regular classroom activities and with other children without disabilities. So an LRE can be something slightly different for each child with a disability. So it goes, there's not just one, learning environment that is for this disability or for this disability. They're all different for every student, no matter the disability. So this setting in which your child receives services may include children with and without disabilities. Least restrictive environment plays an important part in the determination of where your child will spend the majority of their time and how your child's preschool services will be provided. School district responsibilities for least restrictive environment. So the school district is responsible for ensuring that you, the parent, understand what least restrictive environment means, discussing the age-appropriate way to deliver your child's services either through the regular early childhood classroom, the preschool special education classroom, or another setting with an inherited or visiting teacher. Describing on the IEP how much time your child will be learning in other settings and with other children with disabilities. Obtaining your informed written consent for your child's placement. So there is a consent form that goes along with it. And how is least restrictive environment, how's it selected? So the IEP team should consider your child's unique needs and determine what the least restrictive placement for your child is based upon those needs. The IEP team must consider the type, frequency, and intensity of the supports and services of your child's needs. Your child's services may be provided in a full day or partial day setting. So they can also take place in a center-based setting or be delivered by a inherited teacher. So this is a teacher who is an intervention specialist who has special expertise in teaching children with disabilities or related services. So like such as a speech therapist that travels to a setting where the child, and parent or the child's caregiver are located. It is only after deciding what services and supports your child needs that you and the other members of the IEP team discuss and make a determination about your child's least restrictive environment. So the placement cannot be predetermined. So that is hopefully one of the boxes that's not typically checked. And that is something in the meeting that you guys decide. School district's responsibilities. Again, a continuum of a service delivery options that includes the option of, I don't know, did something beep?
Someone was trying to rejoin again. I got her in.
Okay. A continuum of services delivered options that include the options of center-based or inherited teachers and services must be considered when determining the least restrictive environment. Whenever appropriate, your child should remain in the preschool or childcare setting that he or she already is attending and receive special education services there. Then your child's IEP team should consider a variety of the least restrictive environments. So early childhood community-based classrooms, early child-centered based classroom, early childhood centered based classrooms, special education centered based classrooms. And then you also can do home, caregiver, or hospital-based classrooms. And then the service provider location. And then we have kind of this chart. This is something that is also on the department's webpage. So you have your least restrictive to your most restrictive. So typically this is where we want to see everyone start here. So we have regular early childhood program at least 10 hours a week. We have a regular early childhood program less than 10 hours a week. You have a special education program or a separate class. And then the next one is kind of the same, but it's almost a separate school. And then you have special education program, residential facility. Then you have home, and then you have a service provider location as the most restrictive. When do services start? So there should be no gap in services as your child transitions from early intervention to preschool special education services. So it should just be a continuous flow. So the IEP must be in a good place and implemented by your child's third birthday. If your child's third birthday occurs during the summer, The start date of your child's services will be determined by the IEP team. So then you have the IEP is active for not more than 364 days from the start date. So these are kind of where you want to pay attention to your dates. So the IEP team will determine when your child's services will start and the duration of those services. Those dates will be documented in the IEP. So they do get changed every year, or every change that were made, they do follow here all of it. It's also your ETR information is there as well. And then we talk about kind of the signatures here. So your child's IEP cannot be implemented until you have signed the IEP, giving your written consent for the special education and the related services to be provided. So your initial IEP signatures go here. And then so then you also have your IEP signature options too, which are also here. I give consent to the related services. I give consent to the initial special education related services and specified in the IEP, except for, and then you, again, it's a very little box for you to give your reasoning. So I always suggest that you either type it or write it out on a piece of paper and it can get added there. Sometimes it lets you type, but sometimes it doesn't. And then you also have the box where I do not give consent for special education related services at this time. And that's where. So then we have just some helpful facts to kind of without the whole process. So schools are not required to operate public preschool programs, but are required to provide services to children with special needs. Schools are not required to provide the amount of services, so like occupational, physical, or speech therapy that are recommended by private evaluators for which you have paid. So this would be like an outside resource. The parent school district of residence is responsible for ensuring that the child's IEP services are carried out. Services cannot be denied because of a waiting list or because your child has a behavior problem or is not potty trained. And then again, we just have where is to find the information. So you have, I'll start on the left here. So you have your operating standards for the education of children with disabilities. This is a really good book to have. It does kind of have all the standards that are in there. And then you have your preschool special education. So this is specific to the preschool, kind of this PowerPoint and the preschool, settings and the preschool, kind of just the world there. And then you have your early intervention rules. I believe we also have a form that does get sent out. I sent out with part 1 too, and it just breaks it up a little bit, kind of in a chart. And then you have your Ohio early intervention on the DODD website. And then this is kind of the end of it. Won't go through this slide because it was in part 1. If anyone has any questions or anything like that, we can go through them. And this just starts part 1, so we don't need to continue with this one. I can stop sharing here too.
All right, everybody. Are there any questions? I'll wait here for a second. I'm not seeing any questions right now. Oh, we do have a couple folks typing.
Okay. About the survey, I can put the survey back in the chat, I think.
I think we took care of that part.
Okay, perfect. Oh, I see. That's 12:07. Okay. Okay, so the question is, can I go over extended school year again? Yeah, I can. Do I need to pull up the PowerPoint or can I just talk about it? Okay, so extended school year. So it's something that gets decided, and a lot of it is hard with the initial with the initial IEP. So to determine eligibility for extended school year services, it goes from the student's goals, the progress the student is making, whether they aren't making progress, or if they come back from Christmas break and they've lost all of that progress we've made, they would be potentially a really good extended school year candidate. Extended school year is hard to determine, I think, in the initial IEP because we don't have that student before. It's not something that you typically are going to mark yes in the fall. Most districts, it's April time is when it has to be decided. So most of the time it will get re-looked at. And if it is determined to have extended school year services, another meeting will be held to give the parent the options. So extended school year services is determined kind of based on the progress or the lack of progress or the gap that's needing closing for extended school year services. And services can look anything from like working on math, reading, writing, speech, OT, PT. It can look pretty much anything that's in the IEP document is what it looks like and what can be done. Does that help or make it? Do I need to go more? I can keep going. Sometimes I get off. Lose topic. That has to come. So it typically gets divided from the school. Yeah.
Sorry, I was muted. Christy,
Okay.
I think I saw that you were typing at one point. Did you have any comments, questions, concerns? Okay. All right. I have not received any other questions. So again, thank you, Janet, for being here. We truly
Yeah.
appreciate you taking not 1 but 2 hours out of your time to present
Okay.
to us. This will be on our YouTube channel here in probably a week or so, just making sure that we get all the closed captionings cleaned up and everything. But other than that, please stay tuned. Our next, well, coming up is DD Awareness Month for March, and we have lots of fun presentations and information sessions planned for next month. So stay tuned to our social media and our email listservs coming out to get more information on those events that are happening. So I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of your day, and we will see you next time. Thank you so much and
Thank you.
have a good night.